So I would kindly ask every speaker to briefly introduce him herself as well when I address the first question to you. So I'm turning to Thomas now. And we had some very interesting discussion about balancing KYC with privacy rights. I personally think this is a very important topic that gets easily out of sight when merely focusing on fighting crime. So I was very pleased to learn that you share the vision of leveraging privacy-enhancing tools to protect privacy. So Tom, please let us know what you would advise to focus on.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for having us here at Merge. So great to see everyone. I'm Thomas, just as a quick introduction to everyone, currently responsible for our exciting partnerships here at SumSub, leveraging KYC, but also trying to push the boundaries on where it's used and how it's used within the industry, and especially Web3 as we move forward as well. When we talk about AML and we talk about KYC, the privacy dimension often can, let's say, disappear behind, of course, the fight crime narrative that we see today. And of course, the real sort of game should be we work within the realm of privacy, we work within the realm of concern there, rather than against it. The frameworks like of course the GDPR make this very clear. Data minimization and proportionality are of the utmost, let's say, focus. They aren't optional. They're legally binding principles in today's day and age. Even the Financial Action Task Force, the FATF as well, has acknowledged that a risk-based approach, let's say, must still respect privacy and data concerns as well. And that gives us legal and privacy room to explore, let's say, privacy-enhancing compliance solutions. Some of these might be zero-knowledge proof, ZKP. Others might be, let's say, of course, the scope of selective disclosure, not giving everything away when providing information such as your age or whether or not you're 18 or over, or of course whether or not you're on a sanction list as well. So that's a brief input from my side. Would love to hand it back to you and I can go in a bit more detail.
Yeah, I actually had some discussion yesterday about the question, how can zero knowledge proof actually serve KYC purposes? So I think there seems to be some discussion around it, and that's maybe anchored in our current laws. So maybe we even need to rethink, what's legally possible today.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, zero knowledge proof at the end of the day allows the KYC of the user. I mean, they go pretty far in terms of mathematically proving that an individual or an individual or transaction actually meets a certain requirement. We're talking about actually from the point of view of an attestation, taking a biometric check of an individual, deleting that data, keeping the hash on chain, and that being used. Of course, regulatory bodies that we have now won't be accepting anything across these guidelines, but this is specifically when we're talking about use case applicable to non-regulated institutions and Web3 as well.
So I actually recognize that the crypto space is very different from traditional finance. And so Jacob, turning to you, could you share some insights from your perspective as blockchain analysis company? Did you recognize differences in handling of financial crime in the crypto space compared to the traditional finance?
Sure, thanks Nina. And first of all, thank you to Merge Madrid, everybody for coming and waking up early. I'm sure everybody had a late night yesterday, so I appreciate you all being here. My name is Jacob Cohen. I am the director for Iberia and Latin America for TRM Labs. We're one of the largest blockchain intelligence companies, right? Which again, what do? We do two things primarily. One, we collect intelligence or information about what's happening on the different blockchains, right? We tie addresses, wallet addresses, right, to real world entities. Again, whether those are legitimate entities, regulated entities like a Binance, B2Me, etc., or whether it's illicit activity, darknet markets, financing of terrorism, etc. We do the intelligence piece, and then we do the analytics piece as well, right? We provide analytical tools, so whether you're an exchange, you're a regulator, a law enforcement agency, you're investigating, the underlying potential crime associated with transactional activity on the blockchains. So going to like the question, it's a very good question. I worked at FinCEN, the Treasury Department, for about 8 years before joining TRM. So I've kind of seen how the sausage is made, if I can use that American expression, on both sides. And so I think there's a huge difference, right? I often like to say that I work for a private sector crypto financial intelligence unit, right? Because the fact that the public nature of the blockchain, right? We're the ones who are first seeing, right, the risks, right, and the crimes being committed. So there aren't this. I mean, you obviously have reporting entities like a Binance, right, regulated entities that see suspicious activity and report it, right? But we're the ones who often are the ones finding that first, right, and then are able to then analyze that information and provide like really valuable insights. And so we're basically almost decentralizing the information. Like, who are we? We're a private sector company, and we can see exactly what the risks are today in real time of Binance, of Bit2Me, of Bybit, whoever. We can see that today, in real time. Whereas in the traditional space, right, like it's very kind of centralized, siloed, right? You're like from a regulatory perspective or like a public sector perspective, you're completely beholden to what the bank reports, right? They have an effective compliance program, right? Are they able to detect the particular illicit activity? And then, okay, then we file a report with the appropriate like regulator, the FIU in the particular jurisdiction. And we all know that, public sector agencies typically are strapped for resources. So I think there's a real opportunity from what I've seen in the last, I don't know, I've been in the space for about like 6 years now, but I think you can actually get to, we're talking about FATF standards and effectiveness, right? I think you can actually get to effectiveness in this space because of the transparency of the blockchain, whereas in the traditional space, it is just extremely, extremely difficult, I think, to do.
Okay. So may I dare to go so far to claim that maybe KYC isn't that important in the future anymore because the real insights are delivered via monitoring, so that you can actually, instead of forcing everybody to do KYC to prevent bad actors to access the system, maybe can leverage more the technology to then find the things going wrong and then chase specifically those bad actors instead of.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I've heard that argument a lot in the past. I think that at some point you do need KYC, obviously, because that is the way that a law enforcement agency, right, that is combating financial crime, is going to be able to identify who is ultimately behind the illicit activity. So at some point you definitely need KYC, whether you do it with zero knowledge proofs, however you do that with technology, like great, and maximizing privacy, awesome.
Yeah.
But I think there is the question of, well, do you really need KYC for somebody that's only going, this gets to I'm not going to get into sort of the financial inclusion components, right? But like, do you really need KYC on somebody that's just conducting, let's say, less than $1,000 like transactions, right? Because then if you are doing your job monitoring that transaction activity, then you're able to identify, okay, there's something fishy here. Let me, maybe get that KYC at that point. etc. So I think I think the short answer is you definitely need it at some point, but I think there are ways of being more nuanced and intelligent about how you deploy kind of, the KYC need.
Yeah, I can truly second that. Jose, turning to you, maybe you can also quickly introduce yourself and give us a brief update of the regulatory trends that you recognized in Spain lately.
Thank you very much, Nina. Thank you very much for the audience. As Nina said, I'm Jose Olivares, coming from FinReg 360, which is a law firm and consultancy firm specialized on financial regulation. Within the financial regulation area, we cover very deeply anti-money laundering regulations. So basically, in a nutshell, we help institutions to adapt and to comply with the financial regulations existing and answer the questions and try to achieve a balance between business and regulation, which is very, very difficult. So in a nutshell, this is my introduction. I've been practicing law because I'm a lawyer for more than 20 years, and I have this experience also in the AML area. Of course, my experience on blockchain and crypto is not so much because this is a relatively new area of business. So answering your question, Nina, Basically, the trends that we identify now in Spain is first, more supervision on the crypto area. I mean, this is a very clear trend. Indeed, to provide you with an example, crypto providers registered with the Bank of Spain were required to answer a very, very comprehensive and exhaustive questionnaire by 30 September. This questionnaire, which goes into a lot of detail, like how many employees have you trained, how many findings you have got from your auditors, who is your auditor, etc., will help Bank of Spain and will help the Spanish Securities Markets Authority to address their supervision actions. Okay, and it is true that in Spain we have not seen yet public sanctions for not compliance or not complying with AML regulations, and we believe that this is going to change sooner rather than later, because authorities are putting a lot of stress, a lot of focus on this area. So this is first trend. Second trend, thematic reviews. In the old days, we see like Bank of Spain, CEBLAC. CEBLAC is the Spanish Financial Intelligence Unit. Like doing a very comprehensive audit from like the beginning, from the end of the regulation. More and more we are seeing thematic reviews. Like I want to understand how you are training employees, how you are training the first line of defense of the institution. I want to see how are you doing the digital onboarding. For instance, to provide you with an example, the Spanish Securities Markets Authority is conducting now a thematic review on digital onboarding only. Okay? So this is a very, very clear trend also. And I would say that cooperation between authorities, the authorities in Spain are entered into a new cooperation arrangements between CEBLAC, CNMV, Bank of Spain and CEBLAC. This is also very clear. And to finish my topic, another very clear trend is that the Spanish Securities Markets Authority, which is the authority in Spain on which the MiCA providers are going to be registered, okay, and they are being supervised for compliance with conduct rules with this authority. The Securities Markets Authority has now a specific unit dealing only with AML. So there is no longer need, like for CEBLAC, which is the Spanish Financial Intelligence Unit, to go into the institution. Now, the Conduct Authority, which is the CNMV in Spain, will conduct also the AML review. Okay, it has a specific unit dedicated to this. So this is also a very clear trend existing now in Spain.
Wow, that's quite a lot. Almudena de la Mata, I'm really pleased to have you on the panel as well. And we discussed beforehand that you could maybe complement Jose's explanations with the latest trends in Latin America. And after that, I would actually like to open to all of you the question, how do we finally create a functioning collaboration structure for national views? I think that's really important because some part of the AML regulation, I think, is actually due to the fact that this collaboration doesn't really work very well. But prior to that, anything to add from a Latin American perspective?
Yes, I mean, we're in a, well, thank you very much, Merch. Thank you, Nina. This is awesome to be with you. As a Latin America is getting there in the sense of getting regulation and supervisory authorities ready to monitor and control crypto activity. So I think they are now very much aware that they are eventually being used for regulatory arbitrage or bypassing harder jurisdictions, and they want to avoid that. And so now we're seeing in the next 6 months, we will see several jurisdictions bringing out specific regulation on crypto AML, and also setting up or putting in place better qualified regulatory and teams, supervisory teams, and also more expertise in the FIUs. We as Blockchain Intelligence, we're working already since several years. We're a consultancy on strategy, business, and regulatory issues, and we work a lot with the private sector, with financial institutions, but very much also with regulators and supervisors. We're now very much working since the last 2 years in Latin America, in 7 countries in Latin America with the regulators and supervisors. And they are now seeing that they are getting, many of these countries are getting many remittances from the US especially, and also partly Europe, but mainly the US on stable coins or other crypto assets. So there's capital coming in. They don't want to prevent it, so it's important to allow these money transfer means to reach the country, and at the same time they are facing these issues. And in parallel, financial institutions are also worried because they don't have a clear understanding of what these supervisory authorities and FIUs are expecting from them in terms of KYC and monitoring systems, because nothing is really officially in place. But at the same time, they're kind of expected to manage it on the go.
Do you see any effort to harmonize this upcoming regulation throughout Latin America, or is it a mere national effort per country?
Well, at this, Blockchain Intelligence is working in 7 jurisdictions, and we are trying to really apply a harmonized approach. And I can link that to your second question on cooperation, because one of the main main pain points of the work of FIUs in general, and investigation and monitoring and investigation, is basically that they trace with all these tools. Some of them can use them, have the budget. Others do not have the budget, but they're working on asking for the budget, and we're also pushing to make it clear that they actually would benefit from having powerful tools. But then they trace, and then money goes fast. And of course now with AI tools in place as well, it goes very fast. So it changes jurisdiction so quickly that they trace, and then it end up in a point where they need the cooperation of another country, and there is no structure that allows it. It is very much on an ad hoc basis. It's like, I know this guy from my conference somewhere. I mean, sorry to say it that way, but it's really the case. So sometimes it works, and very often it doesn't, and the money flies away again. So I think it is key, essential, and we're working on it ourselves, building either informal bridges or formal structures to share information, get the cooperation of another jurisdiction, also in different layers, among FIUs mainly, or supervisors, but also with exchanges and CASPs basically, from other jurisdictions.
Okay.
Because sometimes they need their cooperation and they don't have ways to reach them, or they don't have the power to get the answer, and it gets lost. And this is really then useless, because you have, as you say, all this data, all these KYC efforts, all this money is spent in, and I know you're very worried, and we've discussed that. You have very good data on that. And at the end of the day, when they are investigating and following the money, and they manage to get, they cannot do anything.
Yeah.
So it's useless effort, basically.
So, taking a look at the remaining time, we were very, very nicely asked not to overstep the time granted. by that. I mean, very quick round. Would you like to add something? Any recommendation to the views or to the regulators? What do you see?
Well,
should be
it was
amended?
very interesting from Jacob's point earlier. Of course, you touched on KYC being a necessity, right? As we move forward towards the scope, as I mentioned, of maybe ZKP, but more so not zero knowledge proof, sorry, more so selective disclosure, where maybe you don't need to give up every, let's say, facet of information around your entire being within one flow, and you can actually go through and maybe just prove specific facts. As I mentioned, over 18 as one, that you've maybe done a transaction at certain dates and proved that your AML is complete. But from a legal and policy perspective as well, the next step will need to be recognition from, of course, the regulators and also industries in certain jurisdictions. And I mean, that would be the future of treating cryptographic proofs as evidence within certain KYC steps, but also within certain transactions as well. But the challenge there is, of course, the interoperability. Right now, making sure identity proofs and attestations are recognized across jurisdictions, across legal boundaries in LATAM, as well as here in Europe as well, will be difficult, with common standards needing to align, privacy-preserving KYC needing, of course, to be, let's say, secure as well.
Yeah.
And that's where collaboration matters and these conversations matter too. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Tom.
Yeah.
Jacob.
I'll try to be brief. Yeah, I think with blockchain technology, again, because this information is publicly available, there's ample opportunity to collaborate across FIUs, law enforcement agencies, regulators, right? Because now you're speaking from the same sheet of music, right? They're all seeing the same hash, they're all seeing the same risk. So I think particular efforts like AMLA, hopefully here in Europe, hopefully that will help, kind of go toward that effectiveness and do better at information sharing, which I think is challenging in the traditional space. And then Latin America, frankly, still pretty far behind regulatorily. They're catching up. FIUs, they need training, they need resources. We're still not there yet.
Thank you. Jose.
Yeah, well, my takeaway will be, you know that in Europe we have a new AML package that will become enforced or enforceable in 2027, which it seems that it's too far, but it's too close. So start adapting to a new regulation, because we have a new authority in Europe, the AMLA, which is now alive and will start its supervisory actions in 2028. Okay, and as per the European Banking Authority report published yesterday, the cooperation is working. The improvement has been a lot because of supervisory college and bilateral arrangements between countries. So the cooperation is working, it seems. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Jose, Jacob, Almudena, Tom, for these contributions. And maybe we leave some time, at least for the audience here. If you have questions, gladly come up to us. Thank you.